Late-night gas stations are never completely empty. Sometimes someone is watching from the dark. Story 1. The neon sign above the pumps hummed with a sickly, rhythmic buzz, the only sound for miles against the oppressive silence of the high desert. I leaned against the counter of the station, the smell of stale coffee and floor wax clinging to the stagnant air. It was 3:17 a.m. My shift was a vacuum, a hollow space between nowhere and somewhere else. A bell chimed, a sharp, metallic intrusion. A man walked in. He wore a heavy, tan trench coat that looked damp despite the arid heat of the night. His skin had the gray, waxy translucence of a fish pulled from the deep. He didn't look at me. He walked straight to the refrigerated beverage aisle and stood there, staring into the glass. I waited for him to grab a soda. He didn't. He just stood, his forehead pressed against the glass, his breath fogging the pain in erratic, jagged patterns. "Help you find something?" I asked, my voice sounding thin and brittle. He turned slowly. His movement was wrong, too fluid, like a marionette being worked by a clumsy hand. He didn't have eyes. Where they should have been, there were only smooth, pale indentations, like a statue that had never been finished. He smiled, and I realized with a jolt of nausea that his teeth didn't belong in a human mouth. They were jagged, translucent shards. "I need the time," he whispered. His voice sounded like dry leaves skittering across pavement. "It's 3:20, I stammered, my hand creeping toward the silent alarm beneath the counter. He tilted his head until his neck cracked, a wet, crunching sound. "No, I mean the time, the amount of it left." The lights in the store flickered, then died, leaving us in the bruised purple glow of the highway lamps outside. I fumbled for my flashlight, but when the beam hit the aisle, the man was gone. The refrigerated door hung open, swinging gently on its hinges. I rushed to the window, peering out into the lot. My car sat under the amber glow of the floodlights, empty, but there were wet footsteps, huge, splayed indentations, leading from the store door directly to the fuel pump. They stopped there, circling my car 3 times before vanishing into the featureless dark of the highway. I locked the door and retreated to the back office, shivering. I didn't turn the lights back on. I sat in the dark, watching the parking lot. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Then I heard it. The sound of a fingernail tapping against the glass of the office door. "Is it time yet?" The voice whispered from the dark, right behind my ear. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I just stared at the security monitor, where the cameras were now showing nothing but static, save for one frame. A gray, faceless shape standing inches behind my chair, waiting. Story 2. The neon sign buzzed with a dying, rhythmic hum, casting a jaundiced glow over the cracked asphalt of the Midway stop. At 3 a.m., the world outside the fluorescent-lit glass of the booth didn't exist. There was only the black void of the highway and the rhythmic drip-drip of a leaky hose at Pump 4. I hated the night shift. It wasn't the loneliness, it was the way the isolation sharpened the senses until every shadow looked like a threat. A grime-streaked sedan pulled in, its headlights cutting through the fog like cataracts. It didn't park near a pump. It just stopped dead in the middle of the lot, engine idling with a wet, rhythmic cough. I watched, breath hitched, as the driver's door opened. A man stepped out. He wore a coat that looked 2 sizes too big, the fabric matted and stained with something dark that caught the light with an oily sheen. He didn't walk. He shuffled, his gait jerky, like a marionette operated by a drunkard. He didn't head for the store. He walked toward the dark expanse behind the station, toward the tree line that marked the edge of the state forest. He stopped, turned, and stared directly into my booth. I looked down at the register, pretending to count cigarettes, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. When I glanced back, he was standing 6 inches from the glass. I hadn't heard him approach. No footsteps, no rustle of fabric. He didn't speak. He just pressed a hand against the pane. His fingers were unnaturally long, the skin parchment thin and bruised purple. He began to drag his palm downward, a slow, deliberate motion. His eyes were the most unsettling part. They weren't rolling around in his head. They were fixed, wide open, devoid of pupils, milky white orbs mirroring the flickering fluorescent lights above us. "We're closed," I managed to rasp, my voice sounding thin and pathetic. He tilted his head, the vertebrae in his neck cracking with the sound of snapping dry kindling. His jaw dropped, hanging loose, unhinged, as he let out a low, vibrating hum that I felt in my teeth rather than heard with my ears. Suddenly he turned and shambled back to his car. He didn't get in. He climbed onto the roof, curled into a fetal position, and went perfectly still. I reached for the phone to call the state troopers, but the line was dead. I looked out again, and the car was gone. No engine noise, no screech of tires, just empty, silent asphalt. I didn't turn off the lights. I didn't go home. I sat there as the sun began to bleed over the horizon, staring at the patch of pavement where the car had been, noticing for the first time that there were no tire tracks in the dirt, only a single, long, wet smear of something dark stretching off into the woods.